Hey everyone, it's Jen,
and Ali,
and you're listening to Rising Within Podcast,
a show where we come together to connect the heart, head, and spirit,
just like rhythm, lyrics, and melody.
Today we're talking about animal symbolism.
I'm actually really excited about this one. I think Allison has had more experience with animals, although I will say I do get a lot of connections and communications through them, but I would love to hear how you want to piece this together.
Well, essentially, it's exactly what you said, connections and communication. There's signs and omens for us, or they're the potential or opportunity for signs and omens. In terms of even spirit talking through us, things that we may need to know about ourselves, things that we may need to know about our external circumstances and events that are coming into fruition. And they can appear in our life as omens, as messages, but it's actually a form of divination as well. That's referred to as a pantomancy, or receiving signs and omens within spirit. And so animal symbolism is one tool, one resource within that vein of receiving omens and signs. And we then interpret it organically based on what we're experiencing in our lives. So my definition of, let's say, a horse, I'm going to throw that one out there. My definition of a horse may be very different from your definition of a horse, may also be very different from the school of thought of common interpretation of what horse means for most, definitively.
Right.
But I find that they present an opportunity for us to build out our own internal spiritual dictionary and Da Vinci Code, or shorthand communication with our higher self, with our spirit guides, or with any kind of external energy or entity we choose to communicate with.
Yeah, because there's definitely been times in life where I've gone, and I still do this to this day, where I've encountered a new animal on my path, that I've gotten a message to go out into nature, etc. And I will instantly look up on Google what it means. So there's always resources in which you can find the information. But then as I've evolved, or certain stages within my own life or my own atmosphere, I have developed a shorthand with my guides with certain symbolism. So for instance, you guys have heard me talk about Jaws. That's like my message for my guides to me, that like I'm in my victim mentality. Maybe they would even show me that sign if I'm encountering somebody who might be experiencing that too, so that I can deliver a message through that symbolism that they've given to me. So it's not always just for me. It can be in a way to help communicate that to somebody else rather.
Yeah, and that's a very important part in terms of interpretation with this stuff. Like the tools and resources that are external, the books, the dictionaries, Googling, those are all great to flesh out the full picture or the full canvas of what this message means. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, we need to actually take 360 perspective in that moment of receiving that animal or receiving that omen, to understand, like, well, where am I at emotionally when this is happening? Good. What are the events that are surrounding me or happening or unfolding around me in this moment that I'm seeing this? Is there a common thread or a commonality to when these animals appear, and then what we're feeling internally, externally, witnessing what's unfolding? And those are things that we just need to kind of have awareness of and make note of over time with these things. And that's how you develop that shorthand as well.
That's a really good point, right? Because often we see all these signs and symbols and we're like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Rather than asking ourselves and proposing the question of, how do I actually feel in this moment? And then that kind of evolves into more of it being a personalized message to you. Even though I have like the animal spirit deck in my corner of my room, it's one of my favorite decks. I often go through the cards and not referencing what it says in the book, because again, a crocodile for me is another shorthand with my guides that it means healing and cleansing. And I've had a personal experience with Reiki with a crocodile where I was like, as if it was a stuffed animal, like, you know, in between, or what do you call those pregnancy pillows? Like it, me and that crocodile during my Reiki session, it was my pregnancy pillow.
Aww. Was this physically, like it was a physical object, or was this something that you received visually?
Visually, while I was having work done on me at that time.
I love this.
Snuggling, essentially. And then, ironically, I knew when I was going on the trip to Mexico that it was going to be an experience for me where I was going to be leaving something behind and regaining something, as Allison had also echoed that message that I felt internally. And of course, the room that I walked into, there was a crocodile picture in my room. And that was like a confirmation that that was what this trip was going to be, a cleansing, healing experience. And then it completely bookended because we went a little water excursion where I actually saw a baby crocodile.
Oh my gosh. Baby
Point-
animals are just far too much.
I mean, crocodiles, it's interesting. Like, I'm not as scared of them as sharks, but we were swimming in the water and I was like, is this gonna, like, it's just like crocodiles are around? Like, this is,
That presents another opportunity too, is looking at the grouping of animals that present to you, because you've got two animals that are aquatic in nature. You've got two animals that are normally recognized as predators.
Right.
With it. So like there may be something there in terms of the fact that both of them are presenting to you in different ways, having to do with emotional, mental level of healing.
Wow. Yeah. There you go.
But I love that you've paired Reiki with this, because I actually have certain animals that come to me during certain spiritual practices.
Okay.
And I have certain animals that I work with almost as spirit guides in certain circumstances. And so I will have animals that are associated with me co-facilitating with spirit and with the person, the client that I'm working with. It's all co-facilitating.
Yes.
But I will have certain animals that I co-facilitate with in providing Reiki, Indian head massage, any kind of like energetic or physical healing. And then I will have certain animals that come to me when I'm doing that focused on myself. Very different animals. When I'm doing self-healing, what's cool is that you've got the crocodile. For me, when I'm doing self-healing, I almost always receive a squirrel. Almost always squirrels, especially when I'm focusing on my own chakras and doing self-Reiki and trying to like understand where my energies are at, but also try to like boost or bolster energies or chakras or heal them.
Right.
So typically the squirrel will come to me and like actually curl around my chakras. That's the way that I see it visually. And I almost always see this most with my heart chakra. Like I end up seeing my heart chakra as like that hole or that knot of wood in a tree.
Right.
That's like a squirrel's den. And then the squirrel comes in like tail to nose and curls all the way around my chakras. And it's such a very cozy, warm feeling as it's happening. For me, the squirrel comes forward to help me almost like contain energy in a way.
Oh, interesting.
Energy that I'm trying to channel and funnel to heal the chakras or to heal parts of my aura. I almost see the squirrel as like a grounding force that's like a container for that energy and acts as like an anchor point in that way. But the squirrel itself, what it means in terms of symbolism, is typically like lightheartedness. There's an importance to have fun in life, preparing for the future. So like that is what we think of when we think of squirrels, is like taking all your nuts and putting them somewhere, right? In need of lightening your load of unnecessary things that you've gathered from the past and maybe holding on to, which definitely resonates with me when I'm doing self-healing, especially for the heart chakra. And squirrels just are resourceful in nature. Like they're especially resourceful when manifesting. So very strong kind of manifesting power. So that's what it means if you were to Google it. But what it means to me personally, grounding me while I'm healing myself.
I don't have any relations to squirrels. And before us even having this conversation, of course, today would be the day that Spirit showed me a video of a gentleman who has a pet squirrel in his place. And I was like, this is a very strange thing to be watching right now. Here we are speaking about it. And I didn't realize the significance it had to you.
I've got other animal guides that I work with when I'm working on a client.
Okay, amazing. So let's break this down. So you have animals that come to you for when it's specific to you, and then you have ones that come into your mind's eye when you're trying to, I guess, connect or communicate with the client about, say,
and
something.
they come through to co-facilitate, and they actually present with specific jobs that they do.
Wow.
And helping me co-facilitate. So they present as spirit guides for me. Okay. Yes.
Like, do you see the animal, or do you like see
the Well, I'm super clairvoyant. Like out of my gifts, I would say number one is clairvoyance. I see in spirit, and I see So, you know, how some people need to meditate in order to receive colors. It's like I just see with my eyes open most things energetically. To meditate is then seeing on steroids for me. But I see them come in, I see actively what they're doing. And this would be my other tip for people in understanding what this animal symbol means to you specifically, is have some awareness of what they look like, the action that they're doing. So the way the animal presents, even like the age of the animal, is the animal a baby? Is it like middle-aged? Is it older? All those things lend to the message of the symbolism of the animal as well.
Okay, so let me ask you, what was your first threshold or animal that came onto your path?
Oh, it's funny that you ask, because when I was baby medium, I was baby medium in this work, I would have repetitive meditations and guided meditation groups and experiences where I would visit in the same venue always this troop or band of gorillas. And it was a complete family of gorillas. And I would see all generations. I would see the babies and the parents and the older gorillas as well. And whenever I was in this meditation and presenting within this meditation, I knew very specifically that I was human. There was never this sense that I was also a gorilla. It felt very almost like Jane Goodall. And it was a very personal message. So this was always a message for me, because I almost felt like I was part of, but separate from at the same time. Like I was seeing my family and I was being welcomed into the troop, into the band of gorillas, and that I was being treated as a family member, but I always still maintain that sense of separateness about it as well. And like I came to really almost seek out and enjoy whenever I would slip into that meditation, visiting my gorilla family, so to speak, because it was always just nurturing and comfort. That would always be my takeaways from any time spent with them. They would share and show me their tools. They would share and show to me like their gathering. They would essentially allow me to like steep myself within their culture and within their structure of society, and then invite me to like partake during the meditation. And it was just always like a very nice oasis kind of feeling for me.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting that was your first sort of entry point. I think for me, which I think maybe most people would actually relate to this, but I have a lot of air in my chart, so I'm actually not surprised that hawks were the ones that would show up a lot. And they have shown up a lot, especially the last like year or so physically. I go for a walk in nature and I almost guarantee you every time I see a hawk. And they're, I know, associated with the messenger, which is also what Gemini is associated with, the messenger between the two worlds. So it's very much good sort of omen for me when I see that. I don't know, it doesn't always, this is the beautiful thing too. Like I am very reflective of how I feel in that moment, because sometimes it isn't just like, sometimes it's about me having to deliver a message, and sometimes it's actually about me just connecting with the spiritual world. So it's like it varies every time I see it, because when something happens so frequently, it doesn't always mean the same thing every time. So it kind of allows me to pause and tune in to how feeling, receiving, or knowing in that moment. And to add to that, like even just looking into like what they do and how they hunt, and how they're, you know, they're intellectual as well as clairvoyant. They're associated with things of that nature. And I think that, seeing, to add to what Allison says, like when I do Reiki on somebody, I don't see with my eyes open, but when I close my eyes, I can see color and I can see animals, and that helps me tap into the person I'm working on.
Okay, so I had my own experience with gorillas, but I actually took the time to look it up. Okay, because we were doing this episode. Yeah. And so the symbolism of gorillas, if you were to Google or reference in a book, is quiet honor and calm dignity, leadership via temperance, compassion, understanding, and balance, decency, honesty, and quiet charisma, which leads to and gains loyal followers. So I feel very much like now in hindsight, especially after our episode on our personal soul contracts, and discovering like divine blueprint holder is my light worker role, I feel like I was being welcomed into the fold of this troop or band of gorillas, because it was almost like likeness recognizing likeness. And I feel that they were taking the time to impart upon me their wisdom and learned experience of how their society operated. Because, and this, it's very important that this was early on in my journey of becoming a psychic medium and doing this work. I feel like they were attempting to teach me how to be in alignment of my true purpose.
I like that, because I also hear when I'm listening to you speak about this, it's just like the gorillas are a pack, you know, in a lot of ways. And I almost feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just my interpretation, but it's almost like it's like they were your team, your dream team that you work with now to this day. But it was like the integration into that world, or into that connection with your dream team in a way.
Yeah, it's so supportive in energy and in nature. It's so supportive to me. And it's very like I said before, and referenced before, there are animals to me that are associated with external or others, or performing like a specific task or job. But then there are animals that are so deeply personal to me on such a deep level, like the squirrel that comes in through healing. And now these gorillas that were always like a destination for me when in meditation in my early years of mediumship, where there's a personal relationship there with them. And it's like, at that point, are they a spirit guide? Are they a sign or symbol? Or are you receiving reflections of self? So that's something I always ask myself as well with animal symbolism, is if like, and your shark example is perfect of this, the shark coming up for victim mentality. The shark has become a symbol for you that's a reflection of a piece or part of self.
It's as well as like deep fear. For as long as I can remember, Spielberg imprinted that on me. And it's not like I feel the same way about dinosaurs. Think Jurassic Park, which I now look at as more my inner child stuff. Jaws really did something to me. So it does associate with deep fear or panic, or because if you can imagine, right, like you're just like out of your element, because in that environment, say shark infested waters, you can't move very fast, half above the water and half below. Like you're not seeing something, and something comes and grabs you and is moving you faster than you physically can in water. So there's lots of layers to the Jaws.
And then you mentioned that doing Reiki on others, that you receive animals. Have you started paying attention to what those animals are, if there's commonalities, and how often they show up?
So my sense is that from when I do it with Reiki, it's very specific to the person. It has nothing to do with me. And so I often will say to them, this is the symbol I saw. You should look it up. If it's an animal I've never seen before, For you, Allison, I saw the crow. I had worked on someone and I saw a jellyfish, which jellyfishes are actually used for a Reiki. And we were going through the program together. So it made a lot of sense actually as to why jellyfish would show up.
Yeah. So for me, it is those two layers. Like I have the animals that come to me that are my spirit guides, my helpers, my co-facilitators for the work. Right. But then I will also receive animal symbols specific to the person.
Okay.
At the same time too. And those are messages I relay as well. But I actually have notes about the crow.
Okay.
Because you brought that up. And
yes.
So like,
yes.
Okay. So I also have animals that are associated with like years of my life. I have certain animals that will pop up during certain times of my life.
Right.
And the crow has been popping up for me in 2020, or sorry, not 2020, 2022, a lot.
Okay.
A lot. And it really, my awareness of it really started with you bringing it up in episode 3 of the podcast. And I almost immediately dismissed it and associated it on a micro level with something that physically, tangibly existed in life. Since then, though, it's like the crows have been coming to me en masse even more to try to prove to me that it wasn't that interpretation, that interpretation that I had possessed in that moment was very limiting and focused. And so now, like, I'm seeing crows almost daily and tons of them. Like, it's constant now for me. And so I looked it up today to really try to understand, like, why did Jenn see a crow when we were sharing Reiki and doing a Reiki exchange? Why am I seeing crows all over the place? And so crows are actually a sign of change, that things are being worked on or towards, and things are coming into fruition as a result of that there is guidance being imparted upon you for next steps forward in your life. It's a call to pay attention to inner thoughts and omens that may present themselves. It's a sign that omens will become more precise over time than they've ever been.
Right.
And it's a sign also to step back and reassess everything going on, but to take stock of dreams and aspirations in life, and to speak truth, walk your talk, embrace your life's mission. And like, that is everything that I am doing in 2022. Like, it just, everything when I looked it up just rang completely true for me. And now I finally understand the full context as to why you saw that and why they keep presenting themselves to me.
So this is perfect example, guys, of why I often, when I see a symbol like a crow and it's in a session like Reiki, I ask the person to look it up, because Allison, I believe, will find the message that will resonate with her, because for me, crows are symbolized of magic and mystery. And so, I mean, maybe that's part of it, but like if I was to say crow and then insert my definition or what it is with it, it could alter that or change it for the person. And that's beautifully said, and I totally get why that resonates with you. I also see you as like a very magical and mysterious person too, so that
makes me sound cool or something.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like a higher perspective, right? And life and death, that specific bird is magical.
Well, and on both layers, based on what I just imparted and what you imparted, on both layers and levels, it actually is in alignment to what I feel like the true message is for me, which is my gifts are rapidly expanding right now through self-work and self-healing I've done the past few years.
Yeah.
I'm coming into more alignment with my divine purpose and mission, which I've come to learn is the divine blueprint holder, or someone who is meant to guide others in their spiritual journey, their path, their purpose, and helping them to path work, essentially co-facilitate the path working of the spirit. And so like the crow coming to me and you like seeing it on both sides, that it's magic, mysticism, mystery, but also guidance for next steps, everything being worked on or towards is coming into fruition. To me, like that is like almost one and the same. It's affirmation, validation of who I am. It's affirmation, validation of what my purpose is. Yep. And it's affirmation, validation that I am on the path to those things.
So this is just like another tool in your toolbox to pay attention to, because the universe is always communicating to us through different modalities. And animals are, like you said, you gave the history of it. It's like one of the easiest ways for people to connect. And it's not just arbitrary. Sometimes if you're paying attention, it can really have a deep meaning to help your path unfold in such a way. And it's just nice to sort of be seen and heard, through that communication level. And as obviously, as you can hear from Allison, like animals are very significant for her, and animals are very significant for me, because I can recall the synchronistic messages, because Spirit likes to do that in case you forget. Like just in case, hello. I would get snakes on my path for a period of time, which is like shedding of your skin. Lately, I've been getting rabbits a lot, which is about abundance.
Rabbit? Wait a second. Were we not just talking about your spiritual gift being within the womb of creation? Rabbits to me symbolize growth, birthing, fertility. Yes. So
okay. I think what Spirit gets excited about, and Allison, you can back me up on this, is like once you start to find the modality in which works for you, it's like they get excited and then just like bombard you with things. And animals galore. I know raccoons are so easy to see in Toronto, and guys, like I've had raccoons every night, like not just like my porch, but they're like knocking at my door. Like knocking.
Yeah, she showed me a video of this. She showed me a video where they literally
hang out in
are knocking on the window and peeking inside, and they're like with a sense of purpose of some kind, where it's like they're so adamant to get into your space.
Yeah. And I know that they symbolize problem solving, I believe. A couple of other things I should probably dive into a little bit more, but it's been a very interesting week.
And you seem to be like attracting these raccoons on a ridiculous level. What's going on with your energy? What's going on with your aura? What's going on with you that you are acting as a super magnet attractor to these raccoons who feel the need to like be a part of your Disney princess life? Sometimes there is a level of discomfort with these signs, with these omens, with these animals, with fill in the blank here that presents itself spiritually. to you.
Right. It's funny
And-
to discomfort because it's like maybe if it was a different animal, maybe it wouldn't be, but with this particular one, it's like more.
Well, if it was unicorns pawing at your window, I'm sure you'd be like, "Woo! Like, come on in, let's have tea together and crumpets."
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, here's a question for you: who are the ones you called for? What do you identify in this moment or in this stage of your life as your spirit animal, your totem?
Okay, so the ones that I call for are the ones that have presented themselves to me enough times that I then realized, oh, you're my spirit guide, and I'm to call on you. The ones that I work with in spirit work and healing work the most are Arctic fox and bear. And Arctic fox, she, to the point where they have some gender energy to them, and there's a sense of name, and there's a sense of like, this is not just an animal. This is a spirit of some kind. She presents to me, the Arctic fox, when I am working on energy, identifying and separating removal of energy. So if I'm ever identifying heavier, negative, or energy that should not be within auric field, cords that need to be cut, things that need to be removed from chakras, blockages that need to be dealt with, whenever I'm removing energy from someone's energetic field, it's the Arctic fox that comes forward to immediately grab it in her jaws or carry it on her back. And she's the one who actually takes it from there.
Wow.
And to the point where I can see her transmuting the energy and then re-releasing it into the universe in a different form. And the fox itself symbolizes solutions to problems being faced that are currently at hand, divine ingenuity when problem solving, persisting with patience in a balanced way in order to resolve things, and possessing the tools and resources needed to face what lies ahead of you. So like the fox has never had those definitions to me, but it was interesting that when looking this up, it aligned with the purpose of me working with the fox. So oftentimes when I'm dealing with any energies like that and healing, I'm almost never touching the energy myself. Like this fox, she acts like an intermediary for me, that this energy is not then coming into my aura, and that there's no cords then being created between myself and the client as a result of dealing with this energy.
Very important. Very important.
And then the second animal is a brown bear. And she, again, another female energy, she, again, presents to me and comes to me as a form of protection for myself and my client. She actually comes forward as holding down the fort or holding down space. And I almost always see her within my clairvoyance as hugging or holding my client or their energy or their auric field. And she really helps to anchor, tether, and ground the healing session for myself and my client. And so those two in tandem come forward as my team in animals and in spirit guides while I'm doing healing, so that I can focus on what I'm receiving and so that I can focus on where the energy needs to go to then remember that information to relay to the client after the session. And I'm able to do that in that way because I know I've got brown bear spirit guide who's holding down the fort, protecting both of us and making sure that this is a safe kind of energetic exchange or action that's happening. And then I also know that I've got my Arctic fox spirit guide and that she's the one who's dealing with any of the gunk that's coming up as a result of the session. So because I can trust in those two energies, fulfilling those roles and purposes, I can then focus in another way for the client.
You've given me something to marinate on because I feel like I've often referred to guides, ancestors, and alien fam jam archangels as like part of what I call upon. But besides like seeing animals physically or being put on my path in terms of a way to connect to the other world, I haven't actually meditated on connecting with certain ones to help me progress through certain situations. So you've given me something to do some homework on actually, which is great.
Well, and for me, they've always presented themselves and they end up presenting themselves enough times that I then start to realize this is the nature of our dynamic and relationship together.
Yeah.
And that's why I said early on in this episode, like, we need to really pay attention to the frequency, the circumstances, and what we're feeling and seeing and doing when these animals come to us. But for the longest time, I wasn't even recognizing the Arctic fox as my spirit guide. I would just be like, oh, isn't this weird that every time I go to remove something and deal with it myself, like I used to do the transmuting of that energy myself while in session. That's what's important here, is that what they took on over time are aspects of the healing that I used to do myself on top of everything else.
Right.
And there would be times where I would feel overwhelmed in doing the healing because I would feel like, well, I'm not an octopus. I don't have 8 arms or limbs to be able to be doing all this stuff while healing. I would really love to be focused in one area for the client. And so that's when this stuff started manifesting.
Well, you're just giving me something to think about, because I've obviously had a lot of synchronistic animals, and I've just thought about it being a message repeating, but like maybe the raccoon is something I'm not even aware of. Maybe they're actually part of the team I haven't acknowledged.
What you just said is huge. What you just said is huge. That maybe it's part of my team I haven't been acknowledging.
Yes.
My heart sang when you said that. I got such powerful physical validation within spirit when you said that. There are aspects of your team you've not met yet.
Wow. Well, I thought, and you haven't answered this yet because you've given us so much amazing little niblets and things to marinate in, that the wolf was my spirit animal for the time being. Like that came through, and that was very clear. I'm now like, is that my spirit animal or is that part of my team? We're going to have a powwow.
Yeah, and you're making me think about the crow now. Now that you're throwing this out there, I'm like, well, wait a second now. Because the spirit animal that I was receiving most from 2020 to 2021, the lion. And I always associated the lion with, like, because I was also receiving a lot of symbolism having to do with the strength card and tarot.
Yeah.
And I'm a rising Leo, so I always associated with that. But now I'm like, wait a second. Are there also aspects of my spirit team that are coming forward? Like, is this lioness? Because I got very much strong female vibe.
Right.
And usually if I'm receiving gender expression, name, venue on top of the animal, that's usually a sign to me that this isn't just a sign or symbol. This is like an energy and entity unto itself that's presenting to me. Now I'm like, I've been ignoring this lioness this whole time because I can feel her now with me.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a spirit guide.
Right.
That just got validated to me. And like this crow that's coming forward, which actually feels masculine in an energy, things to ponder, things that make you go,
Food for thought. Hopefully the viewers are getting as much out of this to percolate in, asking questions that don't necessarily have answers, but I always find with any questions, they do come in, for me at least, in a few days. Yeah, the wolf is really, I'm going to think about that. I also feel as you evolve, so does your animal.
Isn't it funny? You're the wolf and I'm the lioness. Because the wolf is so like lunar, they howl at the moon, and the lioness is so like solar and sun-based.
Oh my god, I love that connection. Makes, oh wow, good.
We're so like an energy, 2 sides of the same coin. It's uncanny.